Welcome to Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. Today we have Philip Shaw. Philip is from Canada and he will talk about farming, a lot about farming and the economic situation for farmers in Canada. Philip, how are you?
I'm pretty good as you can be during this pandemic, Louise. Nice to chat with you.
I'm doing great as well. So, Philip, where exactly do you farm and what crops do you grow?
Well, I farm in southwestern Ontario in Canada. Now, that's in eastern Canada. And I know a lot of your viewers would probably think of Canada as a very cold place. However, so if you think of eastern Canada, I'm in the most southern part of eastern Canada. So I'm actually only about maybe 30 kilometers away from the American border, and I'm very close to the city of Detroit, Michigan in the USA. So if you think about the geography, I'm really far south in Canada, and I grow a lot of the same crops that typically an American farmer would grow in places like Illinois and Indiana and Iowa and Michigan and places like that. In Canada, it's a big country, right? It stretches from sea to sea to sea all the way to the North Pole and the West Coast. And the agriculture is distinctly different within regions here. You have Western Canada, which includes everything west of Ontario to the Pacific Ocean, and large expanses of agriculture out there, but they grow mostly canola and wheat, cereal grain crops. There's some corn grown, but not very much. It's totally different in a much harsher climate, much colder climate than here. Here in Eastern Canada, which I include Ontario and Quebec, it's culturally different than the West too, because a third of us speak French versus English, and the crops are more similar to what they are in the Midwest of the United States. So I farm here. I have all my life, and I continue to. I also, as you alluded to earlier, I am also an agricultural economist. Got my master's degree here in agricultural economics and business from the University of Guelph, which is a university here. And over a period of 30 some years, I've written a lot of columns on agricultural economics. I do a lot of market commentary, and I write about markets specifically, in the United States and Canada, but I also rely on market information from my friends in South America, as well as my friends around the world on Twitter. So that's some of what I do. I'm published across the United States and Canada for DTN, which is a company in Omaha. I also write most of the commodity commentary for the Grain Farmers of Ontario here in Canada, and several other publications. And I used to do podcasting. I used to do a lot of things that maybe you do, but I don't do that anymore. But I like to say that I mainly farm. There's just a lot of other different aspects to my business than farming. But I grow corn and soybeans like they do in Brazil and Argentina. So I know you
Yeah,
know a lot about that.
yeah. How many acres this season for soy and how many acres for corn?
Well, I grow a total of 865 acres, so there's about 500 into soybeans, and the rest is divided almost evenly between corn and wheat. I grow some wheat here as well, and I know that you grow wheat down in South America as well. In fact, I think Argentina exports wheat to Brazil, don't they, or is it the other way
Yes,
around?
yes.
Yes, I thought so, yes. So this year, the fundamentals for corn aren't very good, especially during the COVID-19 crisis. But I'm growing a little bit more corn than last year. It's more a rotational concern. But,
When
we're
when
so
did
different,
you
right?
yeah, when did you start planting this season?
Well, I know it's opposite from from where you are, in the southern hemisphere. But I started planting corn about May 1st. And I
Mm-hmm.
finished May the 6th, and I'll harvest that in late October or late November of this year. And I haven't planted any soybeans yet because it's too wet to plant here. But I'll be planting them as soon as it dries up, and from now until June 1st, or maybe even a little bit past that.
Were you happy with the weather those days?
When I was planting, it was very good weather, except it was extremely cold. Now, in Buenos Aires, where you are, I don't think you get snow any time of the year. You have to go down to Cape Horn
No.
and Patagonia. You have to go down to
Yeah.
Patagonia to see snow,
Yeah.
or up to the mountains. But, believe it or not, we woke up here on May the 10th with an inch of snow. So even though
Huh.
I'm in the southern part of Canada, these things happen to us from time to time. And in Ontario and Quebec, where I write a lot of commodity commentary, it's about as far north as you can grow corn. So, there are limits to what we can do here.
And what are you expecting for this market? Because we had very negative news in the US about ethanol, and how is that working north of the border?
Well, Argentinian and Brazilian farmers, to some extent, are similar to Canadian farmers in that the exchange rate that you have for the Brazilian real and the Argentinian peso, I know it's a little different in Argentina, but
Yeah.
is similar to what we have in Canada, where we have a devalued currency versus the American dollar. So that's actually making Brazilian domestic prices very handsome, as you surely know, very
Yeah.
good for the Brazilian farmer, and so the problems that we have, right? The grain fundamentals that we have here in North America is, to go back is that we've had the trade war between the United States and China, and that has shifted a lot of soybean buying from China to Brazil, which has
Mhm.
been a real gift to the Brazilian farmers. And as you know, our Brazilian friends have really increased their production of soybeans and to corn to some extent. And with the Americans and the Chinese having problems, this has been a real boon for Brazilian farmers, especially with the exchange rate the way it's gone. The issues, though, here in Canada is that our exchange rate has helped us too, but in relative terms, with regard to the Chinese not buying American soybeans, it's hurt us as well because our cash prices are based on free grain movement across our borders, like there is with wheat going across the Argentinian Brazilian border. So our domestic prices are related very closely to American delivery points and American ports, if you could think of it that way. So that's been going on for the last 2 years, and then of course, as you know, earlier this year, the whole COVID-19 pandemic problem that we have that's affecting everybody. We all went into lockdown, and here in Ontario, Canada, we're still in lockdown for a while. And you know what problems that has caused, because we had the oil market crater at the same time. And the oil market cratered because people stopped driving around the world, but it also was egged on by a political dust up between Saudi Arabia and Russia that made it worse. And then when oil cratered, the price of gas cratered, and of course ethanol was blended into gasoline, and it cratered as well. And so it has really affected the demand for corn worldwide. And like in the United States, I've heard some analysts say up to half the ethanol demand could be gone. Now that's yelling fire in a crowded theater. That seems way too much to me. But USDA reduced it. I just can't recall right now, about 200 million bushels, I think, in their last report. It's still over 5 billion bushels, and top end ethanol demand is 5.4 billion bushels. So, ethanol demand is cratering, it's going down. And of course, what goes into making ethanol, and that's a lot of corn. So you've had uh, prices go down, in the United States and around the world for corn.
Yeah.
And it certainly helped portray or make a very bearish price environment for people that produce commodities. And you would feel that in Brazil as well, as if you didn't have an exchange rate. What is it now, 5-1 for the Brazilian real and
Six.
the US dollar?
Six
six
to
to
one.
one Okay.
Yeah.
So my gosh, it gets better every day. We'll just wait till tomorrow and see what
Yeah,
happens.
I just recorded another video with an analyst from Kansas, and I was showing the profit numbers for Brazilian farmers and it was just stunning,
Yeah,
stunning because in some cases they increased their profits by 100%
yeah.
from
So I mean,
from 1 year to another year.
yeah. So, if you ask the Brazilian farmer just looking at domestic prices how things are, well, things are pretty good. But if you
Yeah.
look at the futures prices, futures prices are low. And so that exchange makes quite a difference. Now, we are nowhere like 6 to 1, like
Yeah.
the Brazilian
How
real and
much
US dollar.
is the exchange rate for you?
Well, it's about 35 to 40% more a US dollar than a Canadian dollar. So that really helps with regard to basis levels and cash prices in Canada, but still the relative cash prices that we're facing are
Hmm.
much lower than we have become used to over the past 6, 7, 8 years.
And
And
roughly how much of your corn crops sold out?
well, 100% of last year,
Hmm.
and I don't have any of this year sold yet. And I don't really think it matters what Phil Shaw does with regard to what I do with selling my crop, because nobody knows the future ahead. Nobody knows the
Yeah.
future, and I'm not in that business. I just tell a
Yeah.
story and try to immerse myself with factors that affect the marketing decisions. But
Yeah.
obviously, it's not a very good situation. It's a very bearish situation. There's lots of people say, well, if we get by COVID-19 and we start driving around again and the price of oil goes up and we start blending ethanol again, and ethanol usage has gone up in the last 2 weeks, but it's going to take a lot to redress the low futures prices that we have right now for grain, because there's grain everywhere. And you're sitting in Buenos Aires and in South America, how much Brazil's producing. I mean, another
Yes.
record crop. I remember a few years ago, I remember we were talking about 85 million metric tons, 90 million metric tons. And I made the statement at the time, well, this is going to go to 140 million metric tons very quickly. Well,
Yes.
you're now up to 124.
And yeah.
Like how much more can Brazil produce? Well, they can produce quite a bit more, right? A lot of depends on infrastructure, and a lot of depends on market prices, but just generally there's all the potential there to produce more, and we haven't even talked about Africa and other places that could produce grain if we needed to.
Yeah. At the same time that the surface increases, also the yields increase. So the Brazilian production does not stop growing.
That's right. Now I think that COVID-19 has taught us that nothing lasts forever. If I had talked to you 3 months ago and I said, Luis, like in a few months everything's going to be shut down, oil demand's going to crater, gas demand's going to crater, ethanol demand's going to crater, it's going to be a big problem, you would have said I was crazy.
Yeah.
So I know the Brazilian farmers done really well. They've had good crops. They've been able to control Asian soybean rust. It's just a big, big, big success story in Brazil for agriculture production.
Mhm.
Well, we'll
And
see what happens. Most likely that will continue, but there will be problems too, and
yeah.
nobody knows the road ahead.
Yeah. And what are Canadian farmers feeling about the wheat market?
Well, keep in mind that there be kind of two distinct areas of thought when you ask Canadian farmers. In Western Canada, they grow spring wheats, mostly hard wheats. In Eastern Canada, where I am, we grow soft winter wheat that goes into two distinct markets. As you know, with regard to wheat is grown everywhere, right?
Hmm.
Wheat is either planted or harvested every month of the year except February. And then I
Hmm.
had somebody in New Zealand told me we've planted in February. So it's grown everywhere. You've actually have less wheat grown in the United States now than you've ever had,
Yes.
like ever. And last year it was the same way. But it's being picked up other places. Like, for instance, I'm not as familiar as you would be about Argentinian wheat, but there's wheat grown in the Black Sea area, right?
Yeah.
There's lots of it, and it's growing even bigger. And Australia and China, and we could just go on and on and on. So if there's a shortfall in wheat, it's just picked up other places. So the COVID-19 pandemic has actually increased the amount of baking that people are doing here in North America. And actually, wheat prices have held up a little bit better uh, than anybody could have ever imagined, partly because of that. And it's mostly a domestic local thing. I'm not sure what's happening with Argentinian wheat prices. But, so a little bit more optimistic about that, even though there's lots of wheat everywhere. There's not going to be a shortage of that anytime soon. You always have to watch the Black Sea region because, typically they would, Russia often talks about uh, closing down exports with regard
Hmm.
to looking after their own. So it's something you got to be aware of. And you could even make the argument, well, is corn prices, are they dragging down wheat prices? Oh my goodness, you never think of it that way. It's always usually thought of the other way around, is wheat prices dragging down corn prices because
Yeah.
you can substitute wheat in a ration for corn. So there's all kinds of issues surrounding that. And with wheat, but there's always somebody able to fill in a shortage on wheat. Generally, most production areas don't see problems all at the same time. Unlike soybeans and corn, where most of the corn in the world is grown in the United States and most of the soybeans in the world are grown in South America, two big production areas within North America as well. So if they both got hit at the same time, there'd be a problem. But with wheat, it's everywhere.
So, as an economist, are you recommending others to wait for rally to sell more any of those crops?
Okay, the answer to that question is I don't know. I'm an
Hmm.
agricultural economist, but I don't do this. I don't make recommendations on prices where they'll go. I don't know. I simply just try to immerse yourself into market factors that affect things. It's extremely important here in Canada to keep abreast of local basis levels because foreign exchange has such a big issue. If you think 6-1 is good for Brazilian real versus US currency, I think it is too. But is it going to
Yeah.
go to 7-1 and 8-1? I don't know. I doubt it. But it
Yep.
could.
Hmm.
So the foreign exchange risk that a Brazilian farmer would have, like a Canadian farmer, like an Argentinian farmer. I know in Argentina it's a little bit different because of the export taxes, and there's different issues with regard to
Yeah.
that. But these are the factors you have to immerse yourself. As an agricultural economist, you look at the situation now, and it couldn't be much more bearish, especially with COVID-19 bearing down on the whole marketplace. But you also know that nothing lasts forever, even though this seems like it is.
Yeah.
So I
And
don't know. You just
uh,
immerse yourself with these different factors.
and what worries, what concerns do you have in Canada that is not seen in other countries like the U.S. or Brazil?
Well, not too much. Like I don't have the concerns that you have in Brazil and Argentina. Like for instance, in Argentina, the concept of an export tax on commodities,
Yeah.
that is something so foreign to us.
Yeah.
That is something that it's so foreign to us. However, I do understand the concept of foreign exchange, where
Hmm.
governments look at something where it's the only way to get foreign exchange or something that demands hard currency on the international market. I get it. I get why they do it. And I know a lot of my Argentinian followers don't like it, and I can understand that. In
Yeah.
Canada, we do not have any issues like that. We always have political issues. There's always regional tensions here between West and East, between French and English. There's always a bunch of regional tensions here. Specifically, what makes our prices somewhat better with regard to the optics on prices is the foreign exchange value, just like the Brazilian farmers, except ours isn't as much. So, we have to watch. We have to watch how much Canadian farmers have to watch how much they spend because we do not have the market facilitation payments that the American farmers are receiving from the American government. I mean, you don't get that in Brazil and Argentina either. I know that. I understand
Yeah.
that. But that's something we don't get either. But we're competing with our American friends, and we love our American friends, right?
Yeah.
but I mean, this is something we don't get, so we're going to have to find a way to survive by keeping overhead under control. And daily market intelligence is always key. Like I
Hmm.
say, I don't know what the price of corn is going to do. It's not very good now. It's pretty bearish. I don't know what the price of soybeans is going to do, but you have to immerse yourself in daily market intelligence. That's by reading everything you can, talking to people like yourself, talking to others in South America. I've talked to people in South America for years over Twitter. I've even This is not actually this is the second interview I've done from South America, if you can believe it. The other one's
Mm-hmm.
from Brazil another time. So immerse yourself in these different market factors, and take part in daily market intelligence on the grain markets, and then make the best decision you can.
Are there an ideal interest rate for you for Canadian farmers? So do you think the interest rates are high there or too low?
No, see, that would be a big difference between Brazil and Argentina than here. Our interest rates are the lowest in history.
Yeah,
Okay, when I started farming, they were 23%,
yeah,
and now the Bank of Canada rate is less than 1%. That's how
yeah.
much they lend money to major banks, and so interest rates are very low here, just like they are in the United States. Now, what are they in Argentina?
Wow, over 40.
Yeah, see, I
But
knew that
yeah,
because I know. So you got over 40% interest rates in Argentina. I know
yeah,
why. Okay,
yeah,
like I've got friends in Bangladesh that borrow money over 20%.
yeah.
Okay,
But
so
in
that is
in
not an
in
issue here. That is not
in,
an issue here.
in Brazil, it's about 3% right now.
Yes, yes. So there's a difference between Argentina and Brazil, and it's for obvious reasons because in Argentina they have to think about foreign exchange,
Yeah,
and so in Brazil, that low interest rates, that is testosterone to an agricultural economy. That's like
yeah,
lubrication to an agricultural economy. And so unlike the old days where you had to worry about high interest rates, and so that kept everything down. Like in Argentina at 40% interest rate, are you going to expand production? It's highly unlikely. But
no,
in Brazil, oh yeah,
yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So agricultural economics works all throughout and affects these different aspects of our agricultural economy. Whether you're in Argentina like you are, or whether I am here just north of the United States border with Canada.
yeah. Philip, is there anything else would you like to express?
Well, I think what I like to express to you is thanks, because I do a fair number of interviews here in Canada, but the reason I do them is because I'm asked to do them, and so I do them, and because I like to help people out. But I do appreciate that it probably takes a bit more for a person in South America and Argentina talking in their second or third language. I don't know how many languages you speak to do
Right.
something like,
Yeah.
yeah, I figured that. And typically somebody like me that speaks English only speaks one.
Yeah.
But I don't have anything else to add other than thank you to you to giving me a forum to tell other people in your network around the world about
Yeah.
the way things work in Canada. I've had the privilege to be able to travel around the world quite a few times, but never to South America, and hopefully I'll get there someday. But the agricultural economics is all the same, and it's just different in different places, and it reacts different ways.
And the good thing is that everybody likes Canada. Canada is friendly for everybody.
Well, probably the Chinese would say we're not too friendly these days. We have problems with our Chinese friends with different issues here over Huawei, and but I've been around the world quite a few times. I'm mostly into Asia,
Hmm.
and I know the world operates differently depending where they are economically, but there's also cultural differences.
Hmm.
But the long and short of it is that we need to be open-minded and keep abreast of what everybody's doing and help everybody as much as we can. And I know South America is a huge competitor to North American agriculture now. So it is what it is, and we'll just find a way to survive with regard to all of this. I know COVID-19 is a very tough thing. I don't know what's going on in Buenos Aires and parts of Brazil. I imagine it's locked down as well and having terrible
Yeah.
problems with it, like we are as well. So we
Hmm.
have to get through that. And as farmers, we need to, take it seriously and try to stay healthy as we move throughout this growing season.
Philip Shaw from Ontario, Canada. Thank you so much.
It's certainly been a pleasure. Thanks, Luis.